Hi everybody, my name is Jessica. I decided to start a video series on Latin of all things. If you are just getting started learning Latin, or if you're trying to brush up on your Latin, or if you are taking Latin and you don't really know what you're doing, I'm hoping that these videos will help people who are trying to learn Latin for whatever reason. And before we get started on doing the basics and learning some basics, I wanted to cover a few things that you should know. One, Latin is not the hardest language to learn. People say that to me all the time. Oh, isn't Latin the hardest language to learn? No, it's actually not. I don't even think it makes it into the top 5. Actually, the hardest language to learn is Mandarin Chinese, followed directly by English. So if you are an English speaker, you have learned the second hardest language there is in all of known languages. So if you can learn English, you can learn this. It's gonna be okay. Next, Latin is the mother of 5 different languages. You have Portuguese, Italian, French, Spanish, Romanian. Those are all the languages that come from Latin. So if you know some Latin, Italian is going to be really, really nice, because Italian vocabulary pretty much looks like Latin vocabulary, just with a different pronunciation. German is easier just because you know the declensions, but German doesn't come from Latin. Spanish is a very useful language, direct descendant of Latin. Romanian, I don't know too many people who learn Romanian. And French, lots of schools teach French. So you have some different languages that come from this. German wasn't one of them, but in case anybody's interested in taking German, the grammar is very similar. When I took German in college, I had already had a couple years of Latin, and the grammar, where other people were struggling, I was like, yeah, I got this. This is good. In fact, they had one fewer case than we have in Latin, so it was even easier than that. But you can learn this. It's not the most difficult language in the world to learn. You do need to know grammar. You are going to have to learn your grammar. I know that English students don't learn grammar the way maybe they should. I'll leave my commentary on that subject out of the equation for right now, but you do need to know some grammar. If you don't already know your English grammar, guess what? By the time you get done with Latin for about a year, you'll know your English grammar too. You will know what an object of a preposition is. You will know what a perfect passive participle is. You'll know the difference between imperfect and perfect tense. Those are all things that English speakers don't learn in school, at least not like they used to. And we count on computers and stuff to take care of our grammar for us. Well, now you don't have to, because with about a year's worth of Latin, you can write better, you can read better, you'll understand your grammar better. It's a good thing to know. If you are thinking about law or medicine, this is a good language to know. If you are studying for your SATs, your verbals are going to come 85% from Latin. And I'm thinking about doing another video just on prepping for the SAT, because I can get you to the point where you will blow away 85% of the words on the SAT, and it's not about memorizing 1,000 words and their definitions. It's just not. So with that in mind, I have been studying Latin for about 20 years. Took it in college. I majored in classics, so I studied Latin and Greek. I taught Latin for 10 years, and then I decided to stay home, and I homeschool my kids. In fact, we're in my homeschooling room right now, because this room was pretty much the best option I had. it was laundry day, so the other room that I thought about using had laundry in the background, and I thought, nah, no. So we're going to get started. We're going to start with verbs, and we're going to move out from there. Some of this might be too basic for you. If you've already had some Latin, we might be starting a little bit behind rather, where you're at right now. Just hang in there. I want to get new videos up every week, so we will get to areas where you're struggling if you have problems or anything like that. But for now, we're going to start with the verbs, because the verbs are really important in Latin. And you need to know, if I can adjust this so there's not so much glare, you need to know some basics about verbs. For those of you who don't know verbs very well in English, here you go. Your verbs in Latin as well as in English can do 3 different jobs. You have 3 different types of verbs, basically, okay? You have verbs that can show action. They can show action, so down here I gave some examples. Pete studies. Study is something that is an action, okay? As I told my students when I taught, action verbs are things you can stand up and do. Okay, I can't stand up and is anybody, but I can stand up and smile at them, or run away from them, or whatever. So it's something you can stand up and do if it's an action. Okay, so Pete studies, that's an example of an action verb. Studies is an action. Okay, it can show state of being. So Pete is tall. Is your verb. Okay, and it's showing a state of being. It's showing something about Pete. Okay, it's not action. Do not say that is an action verb. It's a linking verb, and we'll talk about those more when we get to the linking verbs in Latin, but do not call it an action verb. It's not. You can't stand up and is anybody. So not an action, it's a linking verb. The other way you can use verbs in English as well as in Latin, you'll see it in Latin when you get to more advanced grammar, is you can use it to help another verb. We call them helping verbs in English. If you remember maybe your elementary school years, some of us are pretty far removed from elementary school, but some of us did learn about helping verbs. It's a linking verb that is helping complete the meaning of an action verb, okay? So down here I have Pete was studying. Was is a linking verb, but it's helping this action verb here, okay? So it becomes a helping verb. You couldn't say Pete studying. That's not a complete sentence. It just doesn't work that way. So you'd have to say Pete was studying or Pete is studying. Okay, so those are your categories, if you will, of your verbs. And it's really important that you understand that. For now, I am going to be dealing only with action verbs. We're going to set aside helping verbs and set aside the linking verbs for now, because action verbs are where we need to start. And your action verbs, like any other verb in Latin, are going to have some things that you need to know about them. And I'm going to do some erasing, and then I'm going to do some rewriting here. Okay. So, when we're dealing with verbs in Latin, you have a few things you have to keep in mind. We're not gonna learn all about all of these right now. We're gonna focus on a few of these, and as we get more advanced, we will talk about the rest of them. But here are the 5 things you need to know about every single verb all the time, okay? If you're going to translate a Latin sentence, this is what you gotta know about your verbs. We call this parsing. if you're in a Latin class and your teacher asks you to parse a verb, this is what they're looking for. I'll even write that word up here, parse, okay? It just means to diagnose the verb, basically. I'm trying to get the glare off my board. The window's right behind me. There, that's a little bit better. So this is what we're doing when we're parsing. We're gonna figure out what the different characteristics of that verb are, all right? One of the characteristics that you're gonna have to decide is person. Okay? Person, if you remember your English classes, hopefully you learned this in English, is either first person, which is I, or we as a group, okay? So if you say, I am studying, okay, your verb is a first person verb, okay? If you say, we went to the store, your verb is a first person verb, okay? You also have second person, which is you, and it can be singular or plural in English. In Texas here, we say y'all. If that helps you distinguish between you singular and you plural, go ahead. But it's you, okay? So if I say, you need to clean your room, which I say to my kids from time to time, I'm using a second person verb. If I say, y'all have an assignment due in a week, I'm using a second person verb, okay? And then we have third person. That's the last one that we need to talk about. Okay, this is he, she, it, or they. All right, so if I say he is tall, third person. She is smiling, third person. It is cold, third person. They laugh, third person. Okay, so that's the first characteristic you have to understand in order to be able to parse or diagnose your verb in Latin. Okay, and it's also important to understand in English. We take it for granted a lot in English because we're all old enough to have spoken English for quite some time. And when you're picking up your native language, you pick it up mostly from learning by context and hearing other people say things. My 3-year-old has no idea what a verb is, but she uses them all the time. And she even uses them correctly sometimes, a lot of the time. And she has no idea about grammar. So it's just the miracle of language acquisition that we have. But now, since this isn't your native language, here we are. We're going to have to learn a little bit about our verbs. Person, just covered that. Number, this is a little easier. You're either going to have one or more than one. It's going to be singular or plural. Okay, there are no other options. So if you have a verb that's talking about more than one person or thing doing an action, it's plural. If it's a single person or a single thing doing an action, guess what? It's singular. Those are your only two options. So you can be thankful you're not in Greek because they actually have dual as well. Which, so there you go. Singular, plural, pretty straightforward, just like in English. All right. Tense. This is something that English speakers don't pay much attention to, but we do need to pay attention to it, and you need to know it. For now, what you need to know is the present tense, because we're not going to be hitting all the tenses. There are, I believe, 6 tenses in Latin, if I'm doing my math correctly and very quickly in my head. 6 tenses. We're going to learn 1 for right now, and we will move on. You need to master each tense as you learn it. There's no cutting corners with this. It's just like math. If you don't learn the basics, you're not going to be able to do calculus. If you can't add and multiply, you're never going to make it through calculus, ever. So you're going to have to learn the basics. For now, We're focusing on present tense. Tense shows us when the action occurred, okay? So if I have a present tense verb, it means it's happening right now. Or in general, it's currently happening. Like if I say, I work on Tuesdays. I might not be working right now, okay? It might not be Tuesday. But in general, it's true. That is a present tense, okay? I work on Tuesdays. Work is a present tense verb. In general, it happens right now. Or I can say, I am working right now, okay? That is present tense. It's happening right now as we speak, all right? So we're just going to focus on present tense. Okay, there are other tenses that we will learn, but we're going to take it little bit by little bit. Baby steps, baby steps. Okay, and this shows when the verb is happening. Oh, I can't spell. Okay, so if you can read my crazy cockeyed writing. Okay, so tense. So we have person, first, second, or third. We have number, singular or plural, and we have tense. There are 6 tenses, but we're going to do present tense for right now, which means it's happening currently, right now, at this time. Okay? Now, we're going to move on to mood. And we're not talking about grumpy verbs or happy verbs. This isn't Snow White. We don't have dopey verbs and grumpy verbs. It's something that you don't actually need to know about yet, but you will someday. Mood shows more of the potential of the verb actually happening. Okay, and we're not going to get into the specifics of this right now because it is an advanced topic, and we're going to have to take it a little bit at a time. But for right now, the mood that we are going to deal with is called indicative. The indicative mood shows a statement of fact, okay? It's something that is happening or will happen or has happened, okay? So if I say, I am a mother, okay? That's an indicative statement. The mood is that it's true. It's a statement of fact, okay? It's not a question. It's not, I could potentially be a mom. It is a fact. I am a mother, okay? All right. That's the only mood we're going to worry about for now, okay? So mood, indicative, and it shows statement of fact. Okay. Oh, with me so far? Doing all right? We're going to get there. We're moving along here. Voice. We are only worried about one voice right now, but in Latin, there is active and there is passive. You've probably heard something about this in English class at some point. Active voice is the subject of the verb doing an action. So, I hit the ball. Okay? That's an active sentence. It's an active verb. The subject, I am doing an action, hitting an object, the ball. Okay? We also have passive, which is frowned upon in English, but the Romans loved it. They used passive like Tylenol. I mean, it's just everywhere. Okay? Passive is when you kind of reverse an active sentence and you make what would have been your object your subject. And we're going to talk about more of this grammar when we get into the nouns, so just bear with me. But if I say the ball was hit by me, now we've got a passive sentence, okay? So I'm going to erase the stuff that's up here, and I'm just going to try to write down a couple examples. That way you can just have it, put it in your bank, and just hang on to it until you need it, okay? Because you will need it at some point. So if I want to do an active voice, I can erase this for now. Okay, so active, I hit, there's your verb, the ball. Okay, active. I am the subject. Hit is the verb. Oh, and just so that we can be super nerdy for just a moment, can we parse that verb? Do you know how to parse it at this point? Can you look at your notes? And if you're taking notes, which if you're watching this video, I don't know, you probably should be taking notes, because otherwise you might not remember what we're going over here. Hit, person, what is it? It's I, so that has to be first, right? All right, I or we is first person. Okay, tense is present. Number is singular. I am a singular person. There's only one of me, which the world might be very thankful for that one. And then mood, the only mood we know is indicative, okay? And then voice, we know now, is active. Okay, so we just parsed an English verb from top to bottom. We know everything we need to know about that verb. Okay, the ball. This is your object. We'll talk about objects when we get to nouns, okay? So this is your active sentence. Now, if I turn this into a passive sentence, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy right here, and I'm going to make him my subject. I'm going to turn this sentence completely backwards, and I'm going to make him my subject. So, the ball, and I'm going to write this like this. The ball is hit, and then by me. That is a passive sentence. And that's a sentence that your English teachers probably don't want you to use, because in English we think of it as kind of taking the power out of the sentence. It kind of sounds poopy, okay? I'm not sure if poopy is actually a English teacher term or not, but it kind of sounds like a wimpy sentence. It really does. The ball is hit by me. Nobody talks like that, really. You don't hear people in baseball saying the ball is hit by me. I hit the ball. So we don't use passive that much. We do use it, but it's not the favorite of English speakers. However, the Romans loved it. They used it. The Greeks loved it. They used it. For our purposes here, for now, we're staying right here with the active. That's the only one you need to worry about for now. Okay? Baby steps. So, what you need to know is that an active sentence shows the subject of your sentence, which is usually the first word in your sentence in English. Okay, not so in Latin, but we'll get there. The subject does the action on an object, okay? So, I hit the ball, I cook dinner, I walk the dog. All of those are active sentences, okay? I grew 6 inches in one summer, active sentences, okay? So, there you have it. Those are all the characteristics. You have person, number, tense, mood, voice. Okay, we just hit voice. So those are all the characteristics of your verb for your Latin, okay? And the next thing that we have to talk about is conjugating. And we are going to get to that in our next video. So if you like this video, if this is helpful to you, or if you think that some Latin videos would be helpful, like my video, because I really need to know if there's anybody getting anything out of this. I know Latin's not exactly the most popular topic on YouTube. So if you watch this and it's helping you, or if you think it will help you over time, like my video. And as we go along, I will get into more of the grammar for Latin, and we'll keep pushing through until we get to Cicero, Procalio, and we can't get through the first paragraph in the first 2 months. That was us in grad school, trying to get through the first opening part of Procalio. It's fun that you can only imagine getting to. It really is just Cicero's version of a headache. But anyway, hopefully this helps. Hopefully this gets you kind of started on some of the grammar. And conjugations are up next, followed by nouns and some noun grammar, which you need to know. So have fun, take care, and see you on the next video.